And we are recording. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited because today I have Chris Payne, who is the COO of Key Bridge Compliance out of DC, to kind of break down for us the latest marketing rule and how it relates to all the things that I know you're excited about: client testimonials, endorsements, and third-party endorsements. Chris, we're so excited to have you here. Welcome.
Hi, great to be here, Candice. Thank you.
You know, who would never think, but really when you're thinking about marketing, your best friend is compliance.
Yeah, well, some people say that, some other people would disagree, but we try to be friendly with our marketing folks.
So Chris, I think you and I were talking through, there is this new update to the marketing rule for firms that are SEC registered, because since I think you said about the 1960s, they've been prohibited from having any kind of client testimonials.
Yeah, no, even for compliance officers, it was kind of unfair for the advisory business to be one of the few industries where our best and most loyal clients couldn't be kind of advocates on our marketing material. So we really think that this marketing rule is a good thing overall for the industry, and we're happy it moved forward.
Because I mean, when we're thinking about how we all make buying decisions right now, we read reviews on Amazon before we buy. We look at Yelp reviews. Even on Instagram, we're looking for comments for a restaurant that we want to go to. So it's an opportunity for the first time ever for advisors to have their clients give reviews or firsthand feedback on their experience with the advisor, so that potential prospects or clients can get a sense of what that experience would be like.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when we think about it, I think the most exciting thing, as you and I were talking about, is advisors now have the opportunity to gather client testimonials via video, written as well as audio, but we've got a checklist and a workflow that they can work through, which has a lot more detail. But at the highest of level, we discussed three big things that advisors should be considering or should know as they seek to maybe start creating client testimonials. So what is number one? I thought this was a really interesting one.
Well, and the biggest thing, like right now, this is a voluntary compliance period where you actually don't have to comply with the marketing rule until November 4th, 2022. So you can voluntarily elect to comply with the rule, take advantage of the testimonial and endorsements aspects of the new marketing rule, and start using them, tomorrow. But the one big thing that advisors need to realize is this rule is all or nothing. So you can't just pick and choose the testimonials and endorsements. You also have to comply with all the other aspects of the rule. And if you're a firm that does a lot of performance advertising, things like gross performance are now prohibited unless you also include net performance side by side. So if you have those materials in your library, you probably need to remove them, or have your legal counsel or compliance consultant fix those pieces. And then also, if you use solicitors, if you have ongoing solicitor relationships, they are now classified as endorsements or promoters under the second prong of the advertising rule or the marketing rule, and you're going to have to probably revise their contracts.
So I didn't even know that. So there's the cool part of this new marketing rule, which everyone's really excited about, is the opportunity to have client testimonials and endorsements. But if you start doing that, you have to comply with other parts of the new marketing rule, which, to your point, may require some adjustments. So I think that's an important point to consider. But next year, in November 2022, everyone will have to comply with all these updates to the rule.
Yes, that's right. Everybody, it'll be the law of the land then, and everybody will be playing by the same rules.
So let's talk about it a little bit more. So you're saying right now it's voluntary. So if you adopt the good part, you have to look at all the parts. And then I think the second point that you had made to me, which you just started to talk about, is if you're not doing a lot of performance reporting or you don't have solicitors, and if it's not compensated, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I think a lot of advisors would be surprised at how, relatively minimal the disclosures are. You have to have 3 clear and prominent disclosures. But many advisors, if you're not paying any compensation to the person providing the testimonial, and you don't have any material conflicts of interest with them, they're left with one disclosure, and it's just whether or not that person is a client or a non-client of the firm. So, and that's a relatively easy disclosure to make if you are, using videos or using written testimonials on your website, for example. You just have, John, client, and then you'll probably want a general disclosure somewhere else that talks about how the person providing the testimonial is not necessarily representative of all clients or something to that effect, but it's relatively minimal.
And I think you had made a good point. I was like, well, who's going to compensate people for the testimonials? But you said that there's many ways that compensation is viewed.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a broad interpretation of what is compensation. So obviously, if you're paying $500, $1,000, $5,000 for a testimonial, that's something that is going to need to be disclosed. But you also have things like gift cards, reductions in fees, fee waivers, all different types of ways of indirectly compensating someone. So be very thoughtful about what you're doing in response to the testimonial.
I think that's really good. When it comes, what is the third point? So you have to adopt all of the parts of the new rule if you decide to do client testimonials. It's pretty straightforward and there's disclosures, but I think you had fleshed out when we were having a conversation a little bit about those disclosures and then being in close proximity and some commentary around what that really looks like, for example, for video.
Well, we use an example of if they're just a client of the firm, and then the only clear and prominent disclosure is that they're a client. So video is a really cool medium for testimonials because, one, I think it's really authentic. And, not everybody visits your website. And I think a video, inserting it into a website or inserting it in emails is a really cool way of doing it. There's a lot of nice ways of inserting the necessary disclosure. So obviously in the banner or the bottom of the video, you can use pop-ups. YouTube, you can have like the pop-up that comes up next to you. I think a video is a really effective way, and you can always link to more robust disclosure elsewhere on your website and elsewhere in the video. So
it just has to be close to the video. Does it have to be up for a certain amount of time? Is there any guidance around that?
There's not. The SEC, the rule is not fully fleshed out yet. The SEC has an FAQ on their website. Right now, there's 2 questions answered. We're expecting, if you look at the other FAQs for other big regulatory changes over the years, you're usually getting to like 15, 20 questions. So we're expecting, as we approach the November 4th, 2022 deadline, that this marketing rule gets more fleshed out.
When you look at all the firms that you're working with, like what percentage are already early adopters adopting this? And then what are some of the considerations as they're doing it? I mean, is there any fear that they would have to pull them when the SEC starts to answer the questions more like thoroughly?
Well, yes. So KeyBridge Compliance has about somewhere between 80 and 90 clients right now. We have about 5 are using testimonials in their marketing practices. So I think that you could probably extrapolate that across the industry. It kind of shows, there's a group that's, pioneers and they're comfortable being trailblazers. There's some risk. One of the things the SEC did was on the Form 80V1, you're going to have to actually disclose to the SEC that you're using testimonials and endorsements. So the SEC is going to know that you're using them, and there's always initial early sweeps of those for new emerging issues. So it would not be shocking if firms using testimonials and endorsements get exams that kind of look at their practices. But we expect the SEC to focus on compensated testimonials first, and then obviously they'll be looking at it during exams. But in most cases, we think that the outcome would be, if the testimonials go too far, would be that they get removed unless a firm has previous marketing issues on their SEC exams.
Okay. And one thing you had mentioned, I said, does this now mean that advisors can get Google reviews and Yelp reviews and things like that?
So the advisors, they've always been able to get reviews. The question was whether or not they can ask for clients to leave those reviews. And that is one of the still outstanding questions that we're hoping that the SEC gives us a little bit more guidance. There's a doctrine called adoption and entanglement that basically says the more the advisors involved in the generation of the testimonials, the more that they have to comply with the disclosure aspects of the rule. So it's a little confusing to compliance professionals still how you would disclose if a person is a client or non-client on a website like Google or Yelp if you don't know who that person is. So obviously you can, if you help the client create the testimonial and you can identify who that person is, you would probably need to put whether or not they're a client of the firm or non-client of the firm and comply with the other clear and prominent standards that we talked about.
Okay, good. So it feels like a little bit unclear there on like the third party like site reviews and some clarity hoping before November of 2022.
Yep, we got about 11 months though. So.
Okay. So Chris, as advisors start to think about implementing the new marketing rule, I believe your recommendation would be to have their compliance consultant work with them on reviewing everything. Anything else that's kind of like top of mind or recommendations?
No, I think we'll probably see some real creativity on like how delivery of these. I do think things like client referral programs are possible. We're just not 100% sure yet on the states have yet to. Most of the states have yet to opine on this, so we have to be careful of not triggering like investment advisor representative registration for our clients. So that's the one other big question mark is how are the states going to adopt a similar rule and carve that out under their state rules. So.
Well, I think this is part of the reason why you only have a few early adopters, right? Because everyone's kind of like wait and see, and they don't want to take any unnecessary risk. But then I think the benefit of the early adopters is they get to experiment, right? And then they get to have the benefit of having those client testimonials to bring in new clients potentially.
Those definitely, and it's kind of an exciting development. It's as exciting as compliance gets, really. It's it's one of the few things that advisors and compliance, I think every compliance officer kind of agrees with this change. And we were always kind of forced to reject testimonials. And now we're excited to see the industry be able to use them.
Okay, good. And so again, recommendation, check with your chief compliance officer or outsourced compliance consultant. You can then also check out the checklist that was created and co-authored by Chris of Keybridge Compliance. And we would be really excited to see everyone's client testimonials out in the real world so that you can really have those clients be your advocates.
Yeah, it's an exciting time to be in the industry. It's a lot of change. So.
Chris, thanks so much for coming on to record this video and for co-authoring. Again, we always think that marketing and compliance make best of friends because, quite frankly, they are essential friends.
Agreed, 100%.
Thank you.
All right.